And then there's that big explosion and the witch appears. Well, when you see the witch appear, it's Margaret Hamilton's double, Betty Cochet. She did the rise up through the ground on the elevator platform and the smoke and the fire and all the rest of it. And in fact, I don't think there is any fire the first time. I'll have to go back and look. I know there's all that red smoke.
It's smoke, yeah.
But it's Betty Cochet. You notice her back is to the camera through the whole thing, and then all of a sudden she starts to turn around and they cut to a close-up of good old green Margaret Hamilton. And when Margaret Hamilton left, though, Victor Fleming, and everybody agreed it would be more effective to get it in one shot, not to cut it up with a breakaway to get the double in there to do the actual disappearance. So Maggie says to Judy, "I'll get you and your little dog too," and she does her laugh. And as she does her laugh, she whirls around. Judy's here, Meg, and she whirls around this way, but it's always her in one shot, and she gets back to the place she's been told to stand on this little cutout in the yellow brick road, an elevator platform. And you can see the vents come up in the movie around the yellow brick road, around the platform where the smoke starts to come up. And then boom, down she goes. And as soon as she's through the floor, there's this burst of real fire. There was no such thing as fakery back then for this kind of thing. So they rehearsed it and they rehearsed it and they rehearsed it all morning, and they finally got it. A perfect take right off the bat, excuse me. And everybody was delighted, a lot of cheering on the set and carrying on, and Victor Fleming said, "That's terrific, let's go to lunch. When we come back, we'll do it once more, so we make sure we've got enough film and that nothing's wrong with the camera, blah, blah, blah." Because Technicolor was one big, huge camera with 3 strips of negative running through it simultaneously. That's how they made Technicolor in those days, and then those negatives were printed on top of each other to get Technicolor. So they went to lunch, and when they came back after lunch, as is the custom, sometimes we've eaten too much or not eaten enough, or we're a little caffeined, or we're a little overloaded with weight or whatever. And every time they tried to do it again, something went wrong. Everybody was a little bit off the beat or a little bit slow. And Fleming was not inclined to accept this. And after about 3 or 4 takes, he went into some of his colorful language. That's Margaret Hamilton's direct quote. I was lucky to know Margaret the last few years of her life. And that colorful language Mr. Fleming was known for, she said, that we, under no uncertain terms, we had to get it right this next time. So they did it the last time, and in the pressure to get it right, Maggie did her turn, did her line, did the turn, got to the platform, the smoke came up, they dropped her down, but they let the fire go before she was completely through the floor. She was holding in her right hand the broom with all the straw on it. She had the witch's hat on, which had a big trailing gauze streamer. Well, she got down, and there were 2 men waiting there for her to help her, make sure she didn't tumble off or anything like that, because it was a jolt to get down that quickly. And she said that she was really surprised that all of a sudden they were all over her, smothering, throwing a quilt on her and blankets and everything to put out the fire, because the broom had caught on fire, the hat had caught on fire. She ended up with 3rd-degree burns on this hand, the hand that was holding the broom, and 2nd-degree burns on her face, on this side of the face. And if you don't know the story, or the rest of the story, her green makeup was copper-based. And heated copper can eat away. I understand, I'm not technically adept at this, but you can really become very scarred if you are burned not only by fire, but fire on a copper-based makeup. So she said all of a sudden she was aware of what had happened, and she said she'd never known such pain, because Jack Dawn, her makeup man, had to take whatever makeup remover, clarifying remover, which probably was, kind of pungent, and pressed down on her face and pressed down on her hand to get all the makeup out of those wounds, and she said she would never forget that pain. And they wrapped her up like a mummy and wrapped up her hand, and she called home to her babysitter, because she had a 3 or 4-year-old son at that point who would be away at nursery school. And she said, "They're bringing me home, but tell Hamilton," that was her son's name, that I went to bed early. And she got home and called her own doctor, and she was, in her own bedroom. And Hamilton knew his mother worked, so he didn't take this with any degree of anything. And he got up and went to school the next day without seeing her. And by the time he came home from school that day, she and the nanny had worked out a story to tell him. The nanny set it all up. Said, "Oh, you've got to go in and see your mom. They've got her in this great new makeup for a movie she's going to do, but she's all wrapped up like a mummy." And he was so excited. And there was his mother, like all bandaged, and he thought it was the coolest thing in the world. But she was off the film for 6 weeks because of that. And so that is one of the legends that is true, but that is the truth of it. You know, now it is incorporated in a whole paragraph about MGM's lack of care for their people and how they would have burned up anybody and what they did to Judy and what they did to this one and that one. And no, it was just one of those accidents that couldn't be avoided because there wasn't anything else, any other way to create that. And MGM did it bigger and better than anybody else, and best of all, but there were hazards, and that was one of the main ones on The Wizard of Oz.
Wasn't it true